Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. The calendar tells me it's Cinco de Mayo, and I actually changed the date so that it's appropriate. That it seems to be one of the last things that I check before I go live is like, what day is it? So today, primarily in Mexican-American restaurants and places, they celebrate Mexico's defeat of the French army back in the mid to late, I think it was mid 1800s, and 1862. So just before we started our Civil War, there was a victory that's celebrated. I think one of the reasons it's celebrated so much in the United States is that folks like breweries and Mexican restaurants they jumped on it to celebrate it and come up with some reason for people to go to Mexican restaurants. I would say that today is the day not to go to Mexican restaurants because there's going to be a lot of amateurs there who are not used to eating Mexican food, and I'd rather go another day. So there you go. That's my 2 cents. Anyway, so that last film was long. It was 30 plus minutes, and it was a beautiful 16 millimeter film from a trip to Mexico. Beautifully shot, Kodachrome. And some of you noticed that there was like this weird kind of deterioration on the sides. Now that's not from age, that is from water damage. So basically what happened is you had a reel and water got into it and seeped in. And basically when it gets to the emulsion's kind of like a gelatin, it began to break down and deteriorate. So that's how that was caused. That wasn't based on age at all. That's basically, drops of water fell. I know this because back when I had my archive at another place during Hurricane Fran, I lost a couple hundred films because the basement filled with like 8 inches of water, and it all seeped into cans and kind of mushed with the emulsion. The emulsion, that's a beautiful look if you don't covet the films in their original form. And so beautiful that the filmmaker actually bought just the damaged film from me for a film that he did called Decacia. The filmmaker was Bill Morrison, and he delights in scanning and showing film that has been damaged or distressed due to water or nitrate damage or whatever. Anyways, in keeping with Cinco de Mayo, here's another film about Mexico. I really feel like I showed this film before, but I didn't find any record of it in my database of stuff that I've shown, the list, big spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and show it again because it's beautiful color. Again, this is a Coronet film, and I think that this, again, is Kodachrome, so it's very pretty. So here's Juan and his donkey.
The sun is rising over the mountains in Mexico. It is a lovely morning. The sun is shining on the rocky hills and green valleys. It is shining on the village where Juan lives. You don't know where the village is? Juan's village? Well, if you look at a map of Mexico, one like this, you will find a city named Mexico City. And here, not far from Mexico City, is the little village where Juan lives.
All right, so someone just said I've shown it twice. Plus I've shown outtakes of it. So
This is
yeah,
you just love this film.
I love this film. Hey, so come in here. Here's an opportunity that we don't often get, but now that we're back at the archive, here's my assistant, Sean Finch, who's been at the archive, running the archive, when I was in my little basement 5 minutes from here. So this is the guy who's been keeping things going when I was just doing, whatever, doing these daily shows. He's been bringing in the money. So let's everybody give a hands up and a hello to K. Sean. So K. Sean Finch. So the K is for Christopher.
Thanks, avgeeks World. Hope you guys have been enjoying this daily streaming show. It's been fun to hear about it on the side and do the work in part that you guys are seeing here. Cheers.
Yeah, and at some point, maybe when I'm out of town, I might teach him how to do a streaming show and let him do his own thing. How about that?
Oh, you guys would be so lucky. Enjoy the show.
All right, thanks. All right, so anyways, so now he's basically the peanut gallery. So he's eating lunch in the kitchen, which is right next to us, and I hear his comments. So I felt like I had to bring him in so he's not just this disembodied voice. All right, so yes, I blew it. I had shown Juan and his donkey many times, and for some reason had never made a note of it. So, yeah, 3 times is too many times. So in the meantime, here, let's learn about water.
May we please have a drink of water, Uncle Bob?
You certainly may. That's one thing I have plenty of. Help yourself.
Boy. I'm next.
All right, plenty for everybody.
I'm next.
Well, what's this, the 7th inning stretch?
No, we were just practicing. Boy, this water sure tastes good. Boy, nothing like water when you're thirsty.
Oh, you're so right, Mike. You know, man can add all sorts of things to water to make it taste differently and have pretty colors. But when you're really thirsty, boy, you'll choose just plain old water. Say, by the way, do you fellas know what water's made of?
What do you mean, made of? You mean water's made out of something else?
It is that. What do you think water is?
I always thought water was just water. Yeah, just plain H2O.
Ah, there you are, Ted. Okay, now what do you mean by just H2O?
I don't know. I guess it's sort of a nickname for water, isn't it?
I guess H2O has become sort of a slang expression meaning water. But actually, H2O is the chemical formula for water. But why do we use the letters H and O with a little 2 in the middle?
I don't know. Tell us, Uncle Bob.
All right, I will. Come on into my lab for a few seconds, and we'll do some detective work and solve the mystery of why we call this H2O. I'm going to need a fresh supply of Exhibit A. Go ahead in, fellas. All right, now you fellas just gather around the bench here while I go back and get the electrolysis equipment.
The what?
Electrolysis equipment, Ted. That's what we call this glass apparatus that we're going to use to perform the experiment. Now, I'll need some power. Bobby, in over by the radios on the back shelf, you'll find a Super B battery. It has some leads attached to the top terminals. Would you get it for me, please?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'll add some more water. There.
What you want, Bob?
Yeah, that's it, Bobby. Fine, thank you. Okay, now, fellas, I want you to watch these little platinum electrodes in here very, very closely. Because when I attach the battery, the current will flow through the water, and you'll see something very, very special start to happen.
Oh, look at the bubbles. Yeah, look at them.
Right. Little bubbles are starting to form.
Where'd the bubbles come from?
Aha. That is one of the wonderful secrets about water that we'll soon find out. Now, notice that the water level is going down in the tubes. As the bubbles continue to appear, the water disappears. Now, what do you suppose that means? Well, this may come as a big surprise to you, but the electric current running through the water is breaking the water down into the two things from which it's made. In other words, the water is being taken apart, and we're left with the two elements which used to be the water, two gases. Now, the bubbles of one gas collect in the top of this tube, and the bubbles of the other gas collect over here. So you see, fellas, water is really just a combination of two different gases.
Wow. Two gases. Why is this couple of gases that are put together?
Right, Bobby, that's it. But those gases must be put together in just exactly the right proportion. Now look at these tubes again. Do you notice any difference between them?
Yeah, there's more water in one tube than there is in the other.
Right you are, Ted. That means there's more gas forming in the top of this tube. And you notice there's twice as much gas in this tube as there is in the other one.
But how do you know which gas is which?
Well, that's a good question, Milton. Let's make a few tests, huh? Now, first of all, we'll let the gas out of this tube and see what happens. There, you see how that burns with a light blue flame?
Yeah.
You have to look pretty closely because it's invisible. Well, we know that hydrogen burns with an almost invisible blue flame. Therefore, this is hydrogen. All right, now let's test the gas in the other tube. There. You see how that spark on the end of this piece of wood burst into flame and burns very fast? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's because that spark has come in contact with oxygen. Now, oxygen itself doesn't burn. However, it enables other things to burn. So, by this experiment, we know that water is made up of two gases, hydrogen and oxygen. Now, the chemical symbol for hydrogen is the letter H. And to represent oxygen, the letter O is used.
But we call it H2O. What does the little 2 mean?
All right, remember that we decided that there was twice as much of one gas as there is of the other? Do you remember which one?
Well, this would have twice as much gas in it.
Uh-huh. And do you remember what happened with this tube?
Well, this tube had a blue flame on the top.
Right.
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen, right.
Yeah.
Twice as much hydrogen as there is oxygen. And in order to represent that in our chemical formula, we use the little number 2. H2O. In other words, 2 parts of hydrogen combining with 1 part of oxygen makes up the wonderful substance we know as water.
How about that? We use water to put out fire, but it's made from 2 gases which burn like crazy.
Well, almost, Mike. Remember that oxygen just helps other things burn. No, water is a very remarkable liquid. All life depends on it. And you know, water is a wonderful example of the Creator's great wisdom and careful planning. And the ways in which our water supplies are regulated and maintained is another remarkable story. You see, about 3/4 of the entire surface of the earth is covered with water. The rivers and the lakes and the oceans and the streams. But as you know, the snowflakes and the raindrops that are formed in the clouds above the earth are formed from water that is in the air. Rising from the surface of the oceans and lakes and rivers and streams are tiny particles of water, which usually are so small that you can't see them. Water in this form is called vapor. And the process by which water changes from a liquid to vapor is known as evaporation. Sometimes, however, this water in the air can be seen. And these particles are now droplets of mist. But whether you can see it or not, there is always water in the air. And under the right conditions, the water vapor will turn into a liquid. You can see evidence of this on a blade of grass or the petals of a flower. It all depends on the temperature and the amount of water in the air. The process of changing vapor to liquid is called condensation. The same thing is happening up in the sky when the clouds form. As the warm, moist air rises, it begins to cool, and the water vapor in the air condenses into little drops of water. As the wind moves the clouds along, the drops of water grow bigger until they become too heavy to stay in the air any longer, and down they come as raindrops. Or, when the conditions are just right, snowflakes are formed which fall silently to the earth, where they remain until the warm rays of the sun cause the snow to melt. Little drops of water form rivulets, and the water pours into streams that go rushing and tumbling down the hillside. Finally, the water is sent splashing into irrigation ditches where it bubbles out to soak deeply into the ground. Here it is taken in by the roots of thirsty plants, plants that bring forth blossoms and fruit of every kind. The water freshens the barren earth, changing it into a land of plenty. Another way in which water serves our need is power. In olden times, water was used to turn water wheels to grind the grain and cut the lumber. Today, the old water wheel is gone, but the power is still there, turning modern water wheels, the huge turbo generators that change that water power into electrical energy. Energy sent along wires to places where man puts it to work in thousands of different ways every day. And when the day is over, the power from the water lights our homes and our cities.
You know, I never thought about water that way before. Neither did I. I just drank it and forgot it.
Yes, I guess most of us never stop to realize what God has done for us by giving us water. We don't appreciate how much this common, ordinary substance means to us. We're so used to it, we just take it for granted. But it helps grow the food we eat. It provides electricity and steam for power. We use it to keep things clean. We boil things in it to sterilize them and prevent disease. We drink it. We skate on it. And we swim in it. We make snowballs out of it. We use it for cooking. And we keep things cold with it. Yes, water is essential to all life. Without it, there would be no grass, or trees, or any living thing. For without water, you and I wouldn't be alive right now. You know, it makes a person feel very, very grateful for water. Two colorless, tasteless, odorless, invisible gases combined in just exactly the right way to give us this wonderful, life-giving liquid. Just plain old H2O.
So that is Moody Institute of Science basically ripping off Mr. Wizard. That is 100% what's going on there. And the whole concept of kids coming into this space, and today we're going to learn about such and such, and then we're going to do some experiments, and the kids are going to interact live with what's happening. That is totally Mr. Wizard. And so Moody Institute of Science is interesting. It was started by Dr. Irwin Moon, who was not in this film, but has shown up in other films that I have. And he was a doctor, not of science, but of religion. And he was a hobbyist. He was a photography hobbyist, and he was also a hobby scientist who loved science a lot and really would go to conferences. He had a great relationship with scientists. And this is in the late 40s, early 50s. And he would do these, what he called sermons from science, where he would do like some sort of pretty cool science experiment. Then, and he would do this live. He would go to a church and he would do it. And one of the most popular ones was where he was hooked up to a Van de Graaff generator. It was like shooting arcs out of his body and all this stuff. You know, these kind of things that are interesting kind of science stunts. And there was a lot of interest in science after World War II. And so then he would do a sermon. He would basically, talk about the Gospels and talk about, like, tangentially how it was related to the science experiment he just did. And he was very popular with that, and he actually got kind of folded into the Moody Bible Institute. I guess Sermons of Science came before the Moody Institute of Science. And then they formed the Moody Institute of Science, and basically he had like a studio in, I think, Whittier, California, and he would shoot films, and most of them were like 30-minute kind of versions of the Sermons of Science, and they would have all this beautiful stop motion, like high time-lapse photography, all this beautiful micro photography. Supposedly he was one of the first persons to capture open heart surgery in color. He would travel. They would do all these really great experiments. So I think if you can find like a beautiful color print of that film from that time, which I have a couple, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful footage of science concepts. The problem is, it's not really a science film. It actually kind of veers off and starts talking about gospel stuff. And so after Sputnik launched, the United States got really scared. Like, oh, we're lagging behind the Soviets, and they're kind of our enemies now, so we need to basically spend more money. And that's where the National Defense Education Act came in. And so a bunch of money poured into schools for science and math, and a bunch of that went towards buying 16mm math and science films. And Moody Institute of Science is like, hey, we have science films. And so they edited them, the films, from 30 minutes down to like 10-minute or 15-minute or occasionally something a little bit longer than that, films that they could sell in an educational market. And I actually have books that I just realized I'm like a little tiny postage stamp image of myself there. That's very frustrating. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. I'll do this cover up. It's kind of weird. So they basically took out most of the sermon, the gospel, and they made it to where it would talk about God and his creation. And so many of these films show beautiful natural footage of animals doing different things. And then there's always this hook at the end that basically is either flying in the face of evolution or is basically talking about the morality as related to the science concept. But they don't talk about Jesus, they just talk about God, because they knew that most people in the United States believed in God, whether they were Jewish, Catholic, or Protestant. And so at some point in the 60s and 70s, educators were like, yeah, that's not cool. And these aren't really science films. These are really, they show you some of the cool stuff of a certain science concept. They don't really dig into the science at all. It's really just a gimmick to get you interested in learning about God. So, and this was the Mr. Fix-It series, and Don Herbert was Mr. Wizard and was doing a great thing with his television show. And so I think they just ripped it off and did their own version of this. So much more information than you probably want to know about Moody Institute of Science. I love it. I wrote an article with a film professor friend of mine and learned a whole lot about it. Pretty much it planted the seeds for intelligent design back in the day. Anyways, so we got our film flash transfer set up. Telecine set up over here. And we're going to watch a film about the secrets of good grades. Enjoy.
The next time you go to class, look around you. You may notice that there are a few people in the room who look a little, oh, shall we say, tense. Could be that what you're seeing are the insiders. People who found out that the only real game going on at school is the learning game, in spite of what it seems like. See, the only game that schools are really set up to offer is the learning game, and to the degree that you forget that, you, my friend, are a loser. Because if you're in school right now, that's the game you're in, whether you know it or not. Learn to play it while you're here, because once you're out, you can't play it anymore. And that's what this film's about. Giving you the insider's edge, the successful person's edge. The tips you're about to get are not in general circulation. No, these are the secrets, the secret advantages. Tips which achievers usually keep to themselves. The kids whose stories you're about to hear didn't come to school knowing these tricks. They figured them out for themselves and used them because they worked. You don't have to use any of them, but don't say nobody ever told you.
My problem was that I always got sleepy in class, so my notes weren't too good. And I'd rationalize to myself and say, well, I'll read the book real well and make up for it. Well, then I got this part-time job which kind of cut away at my study time. So I decided that the best thing I could do is when I get to class is just to concentrate and give it my all, you know, since I had to be there anyway. The first thing I do is I get there early and I sit up close. When I can hear and see well, and I know the teacher can see me, I tend not to get sleepy. While I'm waiting for class to begin, I read over my notes from the last class, and I try to guess what's going to be talked about. I try to get my mind in the place where the teacher's coming from. See, I think the lecture is definitely the most important part of the course, because the person who gives the lecture gives the grade. You know what I mean? I pretend it's kind of a James Bondian type thing, and I try to figure out the way that the teachers think. You know, what they think is important, and how they're going to lay it on you at midterm. The minute the lecture begins, I try to put everything else out of my mind and prepare for battle. You have to be ready, because usually the first words out of the teacher's mouth will be a description of what they're going to be talking about. And that's what you want to get down right away as the title in that day's notes.
We'll be continuing our discussion of Death of a Salesman today. And first I want to look at some of the issues brought up by Miller in this play.
I know I've only got this 1 hour, and I want to make it work for me. So I listen real carefully for clues to what's important, always keeping that midterm in mind. Now, there are certain expressions which are tip-offs, but you have to listen.
But most important is the fact that
There's one. Most important.
Willie Loman is a man who simply follows wholeheartedly the ideals and values of a society obsessed by success.
Obsessed with success. As you can see, I haven't written every word. There isn't enough time. I just make sure I get the right idea.
Okay, going back over Miller's life, we can see that there were three major influences. One,
There's another one.
his lower middle-class Jewish background. Two, the guidance of his English instructor at the University of Michigan, Kenneth Rowe, R-O-W-E. And three, his own married life in Brooklyn, raising two children.
Now you're bound to miss something that sounds important, so leave a blank for it and go on with your note-taking. And after class, go up and ask the teacher what it was. Yes, admit you missed it. Get used to talking to the teacher. It's hard at first, but you'll get a lot of free help if you do. I know I did.
Oh, yeah. I know what it was. It was his married life in Brooklyn, raising his two children.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, if I could tell you the one thing that made a difference for me in turning C into an A on the final, it'd be reading my notes over after every class. Somewhere I remember hearing that 80% of everything you learn is forgotten in 7 days if you don't look at it again. So I got in the habit of looking at my notes right after class. It only takes a minute then because it's very fresh in your mind at that point. I underline the important stuff with a colored pen if I haven't done that before, and then I put a star by the things I think might be test questions. See, everything I do in my note-taking is aimed at that final exam. And when I do keep that in mind, I find that I don't really have any trouble.
Okay, lectures are one thing. You go to a certain place at a certain time. You know, it's all been laid out for you. But reading assignments are something else. You've got to do it all on your own. There's a way to read a book, and I fought it for years, just like I fought school for years. I used to kind of sneak up on a book, just reading the assigned pages. I think I was afraid of it. Well, you don't have to do that. When you first get your text, begin reading it from the very first page. Read the title, the author's name, and the copyright date. Read the introduction and the preface. Why? Because you're searching for clues to make the reading easier, and these are the places you can find them. The table of contents will give you an outline of what the author thinks the main elements of the subject are. More important, it may also be what your teacher considers the main elements. A lot of times a teacher will use these as a basis for test questions. And also, if you're stuck for a term paper topic, these would all be good possibilities. When you get ready to actually read the assignment, skim over the pages first. A good way to do this is to read the first and last sentence of every paragraph, then go back and read it. I try to read as fast as I can without missing anything. That way I don't give my mind the chance to wander. When I want to mark the important parts in a book, by the way, I use a soft pencil so it can be erased later, I put a line in the margin next to the part I want to remember, and if it's especially important, I make a double line. Again, I look particularly closely at the first sentence of every paragraph. I try to find the stuff that relates to what the teacher has been giving us in the lectures. And then I look for the parts that clarify something I didn't quite understand. I mark the parts I don't get at all so that I can ask the teacher about it in class. And then when I'm finished, I make a quick review of the marked passages.
Well, I'm a slow reader, so last semester when I was assigned 5 textbooks, all over 500 pages, I knew I had to work out some kind of system for getting the reading done. So what I did was, I figured I could only read one subject for about 20 minutes at a time before my mind began to wander. So I divided up my study time into 20-minute periods. I figured the most I would read would be 3 hours a day. So I drew up this kind of schedule where I put 9 boxes below each day, and that shows a reading periods of 20 minutes each. And then when I read for a 20-minute session, I write in the name of the book and the page numbers. That way I can see my progress, and 20 minutes is a short enough period of time that I don't put it off the way I used to when I try to read all night. I don't know, it works for me.
I get sleepy a lot when I'm reading, so I made up some ways to keep awake. One way is pacing and reading aloud to myself. Another is to jog or do sit-ups, but with a 5-minute time limit. Another is to change the subject I'm reading and go back to it later. And sometimes I actually put my head down on the desk and try to take a short nap. As you may have gathered, I use a timer when I study. That way the time doesn't get away from me. I also had to face the fact that if I was going to go for A's and B's, I couldn't study with the TV or stereo going. If my brother had it on and I couldn't do anything about it, I'd just have to pack up and go to the library. But there are other ways to keep yourself alert and spark some interest into a subject that basically bores you, like reading an article about it in a newspaper or magazine, or reading something about a person who's actually working in the field, or even considering it as a possible career for yourself. I've tried all these things, and at different times they've all worked, because for me, the problem is to stay awake, stay interested.
When finals come around, and they always do, I used to panic and just start going crazy trying to reread my text from page 1. And then, of course, I couldn't finish it, so I go in for the exam knowing a lot about some things and virtually nothing about most of the stuff. So I got onto this system that really works. I start by looking at the topics of each of the lectures I've been to and asking myself what I remember about it. Just the subject of that day's notes, not the notes themselves. I cover them over. Then I write down all the points I can think of. When I force myself to remember, I kind of flush out what I know. Then, I compare what I've written with the facts that I've underlined and starred in my notes. Oh, brother. Okay, now I know what I don't know, so I study that. The next step is to get your textbook and take the passages that you marked and turn them into questions, like this. The Massachusetts Constitution, like the Virginia Constitution approved in 1776, is divided into two parts, a Declaration of Rights and a frame of government. Let's see. The questions might be, what are the major parts of the Constitution of Massachusetts? This is like what other Constitution? Then go back and see if you can answer them. To study this way takes guts, there's no doubt about it. You're putting yourself in the position of the teacher, and you have to face finding out what you don't know, and that's scary. But the amazing thing is that it does work. On the day of the exam, even though I'm prepared, I tend to get nervous, and then I mess up, even on the questions I know. So I know I have to do everything I can to build my self-confidence. I want to approach the exam with the feeling that it'll be easy and that I really will do well. Okay, this is what it's all been for. I don't want to blow it now. First, read all the questions very carefully. Then answer the ones I know, and then go back and do the others as best as I can. Don't lose track of time. Keep breathing deeply, and go for it.
Okay, let's stop here and go over what we've been hearing. The game is getting good grades. The playing field is here in the examination room. The winners know some things you may not know, and this is what they've been trying to tell you. First, go to every lecture. The lecture is the most important source of information because the person who gives the lecture makes up the test. As you take notes, listen for clues which tip off potential test questions. After class is over, spend a few minutes reviewing your notes. Underline and star points that have been emphasized. Get to know your textbook. Try to keep an overview of where you're headed in the book. Skim reading assignments first, and then read with a pencil, marking main points and reviewing them afterward. Break down your reading assignments into 20-minute segments, keeping track of the pages you've read on a chart. Try different ways of keeping alert during your study time, like reading aloud, taking short exercise breaks, and switching subjects when you get tired. Prepare for exams by asking yourself questions from these marked sections of your textbook and the underlined and starred points in your notes. Write the answers down and keep at it until you get them right. On exam day, try to push doubts out of your mind and take the test calmly. What you've just seen are a few of the secrets, the techniques of becoming a success in school. To make them work for you will require more than anything a change of attitude, growing up, a willingness to make the most of your time. If you have the stuff to do it, the right stuff, and you probably do, you'll eventually find yourself among that select group of people who have learned how to learn. And for people like you, there'll be no closed doors.
Yeah, so that was late in Coronet's career, basically. Probably, I didn't actually catch the copyright date, but I'm guessing that it was probably mid to late 80s. And, that was when video was kind of taking over. This was shot to film. You can start seeing, like, in the 90s when stuff was shot to video and edited, finished in video, and then they would bump it to film, making a kinescope. But, it's pretty great. We haven't watched a drug film in a while. Here we go. The High, Drugs and You.
The next time somebody says a little grass never hurt anybody, tell him he's full of it. Listen, I'm not putting you on. I'm no big-time doctor or a preacher or some big-hearted cop. Don't turn off till I tell you who I am. Maybe you'll listen, maybe you won't. That's your problem. I've got my own troubles. I'm a pusher. Used to be I'd buy just enough grass for myself. Then my friends started asking me to buy for them. Then their friends wanted to buy. You know how it goes. Then I smartened up. A big ounce of good grass cost me $0.25. Enough to split into 4 dime bags and still leave plenty for me. What a setup. I was smoking for free and making a nice tidy profit on every ounce I could get hold of. In no time, just about every kid in the school who smoked was buying from me. And there were plenty of them. Another thing I had going for me. Most of them were so green, they didn't know if they were getting an honest dime's worth or not. You think I cared? Look, I never said I was honest. What I said was I'm a pusher.
Thanks, Bernie.
Hey, here she comes. Get it?
Oh,
Let's have a look.
yeah.
Great. Good match.
Let's get the show on the road.
Well, sometimes it doesn't pay to hurry these things. And besides, we don't want to waste any of this.
I know, but do we have to wait until the whole bag gets rolled before we smoke?
Because I don't roll so great when I'm straight, yeah. Besides, when I'm high, forget it. Go ahead and start. You, Shelley, and Alan can pass that around.
Oh, no, we better wait and smoke in the car, eh?
Yeah, all we need is your mother smelling grass in the house, Linda.
Don't even mention it. This whole grass scene's getting to be a big bind. You have to roll it, and then you have to go 95 miles from civilization before you smoke it. There must be an easier way.
Yeah, like speed maybe, eh?
So who can afford speed? Besides, I've heard that stuff's pretty bad news.
Not if you know how to use it. The guy I buy grass from, he sells speed.
For how much?
I think I can get it for free.
For free? You kidding?
That's what he said. First time round, it's free.
Well, the price is right, eh?
Yeah, but how do we know what's in it?
We don't, but he's never tried to burn me before.
Speed's awful chancy stuff.
Why? What have we got to lose?
Sure, I sold speed, plenty of it. And I never asked for a prescription either. All I know, I had a lot of satisfied customers.
Linda, can you hear me? Linda? Hey, Linda.
My stuff was guaranteed. You don't fly, you don't pay.
We'll have to admit her.
Get anything?
Well, the boy says she's the one who passed it around. Well, I can't get through to her at all.
Let's have a talk with him. Okay if we question the girl?
Well, you can try. I don't think she'll hear you.
Maybe we should wait till tomorrow. She will be all right by tomorrow afternoon.
Maybe. Maybe not. Right now, it's hard to tell.
Am I supposed to know what's in it? You wanted speed, you got speed. You freak out on my stuff, that's your problem.
You can go in and see your daughter now, Mrs. Coulter.
You've been going with this girl for a year?
Yeah, that's right. About a year.
Linda. Linda, honey. This is Mama.
How long have your kids been popping pills?
You mean Linda? I don't dig speed. Not long. But a couple of months.
What do you dig?
Linda, honey. This is Mama. Linda, this is Mama.
Look, Mark, we're trying to help Linda. Maybe you think you're doing her a favor, keeping your mouth shut. You're not. Here. Take a look at this. Recognize it? You should. You've seen it before.
What do you mean I've seen it before?
Pot, grass, marijuana, whatever you want to call it. This came out of the bottom of Linda's purse. Now quit all this fooling around. You want to know where this stuff is coming from. This waiting around.
You just got here. Look, Bernie will be here in a few minutes. He had to make a drop on the way over.
I made a big mistake coming here. A big mistake.
Why? Is it that bad?
Nothing personal, sweetie. I just don't like crowds.
But there's nobody here but you and me.
For me, that's one too many. I like to do business with one person. Keeps things from getting complicated.
Are you worried about me blowing a whistle?
My business, you never know. I don't believe in taking chances. You want to smoke?
Sure, as soon as I finish this. Won't be a minute.
You ever tried anything else besides grass?
Yeah, I was on a hash kick for a while. But I started getting hangovers, so I got off it. And Bernie and I, we both tried speed, but I don't know, it made me jumpy. We were fighting all the time.
Yeah, it can happen. A lot of people can't handle speed. You ever tried shooting?
You mean hard stuff?
Yeah, horse. You know, heroin.
Are you kidding? What do you think I am, a junkie?
Man, you kids are all the same. It's all right to blow your mind on grass, but as soon as anybody shoots a captive horse, all of a sudden he's a junkie, eh?
Well, I happen to know that there's no way you can get hung up on grass like you do on heroin.
Oh, hung up is hung up. What's the difference?
Oh, man, there's a big difference. Once you start on the hard stuff, I don't know, you can't stop. It's a physical thing. Your body craves it.
Physical thing, your body craves it. That's just a bunch of words. Have you got a clue how much of that stuff you'd have to shoot before that happens?
No, how much?
Do I know? I'm asking you.
I don't know, I forget. No, wait a minute. In health class last year, a doctor told us that if you take heroin or morphine for 7 days in a row...
7 days in a row? You smoke grass 7 days a week?
Are you kidding? I live in this 2x4 with my mother.
All right,
You think she's
so
gonna
if
let
you
me
don't smoke grass 7 days in a row, why would you shoot horse 7 days in a row? Listen, A lot of people are hung up on chocolate ice cream. So what's that make them? Chocolate ice cream addicts? All of a sudden, a good human man's a pusher.
Hey, don't go. What about Bernie?
Tell him I'll see him tomorrow. He'll know where.
Well, look, can't you wait a few minutes? He'll be here. I don't know, he must have got stuck in traffic or
I
something.
can't hang around anymore. I'm late already.
Well, aren't you going to leave the stuff?
You got $150? Sorry, sweetie. My business is strictly COB.
Wait a minute. Don't forget your coat.
Thanks. You're getting jittery. Told you I didn't like hanging around here.
Hey, look, there's no way anyone's going to bother you here.
I know, but I'm late already.
Al? Do you have any hard stuff on you?
Are you out of your skull?
Why? Just because Linda had a bad trip.
Bad trip? You better believe it. A week she's been in there, and Mark said she still looks weird.
Well, he said they thought she'd be coming home next week, didn't he?
They said maybe she could go next week. They have to wait and see how she is. Mark's in there asking the doctor again today.
It'll probably be a long time before we can accurately assess the extent of the damage. Right now, we're still working in the dark. We don't know what kind of drug or combination of drugs Linda took. And so far, she can't even remember the color of the pill. Now, if you know anything about it, anything at all, and you're keeping quiet out of what you think might be loyalty to Linda, you're making a big mistake, Mark.
It's not the way it is at all, so help me. I already told you what kind of speed it was she was on. But this stuff was different. She made the buy the same day. Oh, figures. She did say something about this stuff not being as good as the speed she'd been on before.
Well, if you can find out anything about it, you let me know right away.
Well, I've been...
Yes, Mrs. Coulter.
How's my daughter?
Coulter, I'd like
Let's
to...
step in.
There's no way you're going to talk old Mark into going to any pot party. He's so hung up over Linda he can't even see straight.
Well, he doesn't have to take a girl. He can come with us. He's no good to anybody just moping around like this all the time.
Here he comes. He doesn't look too happy either. Better you should keep quiet about the party.
What's the matter, man? Bad news?
Nothing but bad news.
Well, Linda's all right, isn't she? Well, I mean, she's gonna be all right, isn't she, Mark?
Who knows? If I can only find out what kind of speed she took that night.
Well, what good's that gonna do? I mean, how's that gonna make Linda any better, you knowing what she was on?
Not me, but maybe if I could find out, I could tell the doc. He seems to figure it'd help somehow. Well, I've got to find out.
Okay, Mark. If it's really gonna help Linda, I know a way you can find out.
How? Don't just sit there, for God's sake. How?
She knows the guy Linda's been buying from. Tell me before. What kind of friend are you?
Cool it, Mark. I don't know who it is. There's no way she'd tell me either.
Because I promised. I promised Linda I wouldn't tell anybody, no matter what.
Who is it?
His name's Bernie.
Bernie who?
I don't know his last name. But I know what he looks like.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I think you do, Bertie.
Just because some high school kid tells you a big story to get himself off the hook? How do you know who's lying?
Seems to me you're the high school kid on the hook, Bertie.
Sit down.
I'll tell you how we know who's lying. We've been tailing you for a month. You want names? We've got names. You want addresses? We've got addresses. You want affidavits? We have affidavits. You still think you'll know who's lying?
Look, I had to have some bread to get my car fixed. So I sold a little grass to a few friends. Is that so bad?
Bad enough, Bernie. Bad for you, bad for your friends. It's a criminal offense to sell marijuana. Buy it, use it, even have it in your possession. In fact, someone in the same room with somebody else who has marijuana can get himself hung out with the law. Besides the illegal aspect, you weren't doing your friends any favors, Bernie. Marijuana never helped anybody.
You think I twisted anybody's arm? If I hadn't had the stuff, they'd have bought from somebody else.
Every push I've ever listened to has said exactly the same thing. It's always somebody else.
Well, it's true, isn't it?
I'll never know, Bernie. And neither will you. Your friends had to find somebody else, did they? When they wanted to buy, you were right there. Now you listen for a minute, Bernie, and listen good. Who else was right there when Linda decided grass wasn't good enough? How far she had to go to buy speed? That was 2 months ago, Bernie. Linda still isn't back to school. Linda's one of those few friends you were selling to. You been to see her? Ever ask about her?
Is it my fault because some chick freaks out? She came on to me for the buy. I told her to go easy with it.
There's another chick you can tell me about, Bernie. What about Susan?
Well, what about her? I haven't seen Susie for weeks.
How come?
I don't know. No particular reason.
It wouldn't be because she's hooked with it.
She never got any hard stuff from me.
Oh, we know that, Bernie. Susan went to a lot of trouble to tell us what a hero you are. She even told us how you dumped her and you found she was shooting heroin.
I told her she was crazy, but she wouldn't even try to kick it.
You ever try to kick heroin, Bernie?
You never find me anywhere near hard stuff.
You're just luckier than Susan, Bernie, that's all. The worst thing that ever happened to her was getting anywhere near you.
Now you're trying to tell me it's my fault she got hooked. Well, can I help it if she's got the kind of hang-ups that got her mainlining? Am I supposed to take the fall for everybody who ever got high on anything? What is this? What do you want from me?
Nothing, Bernie, not a thing. But the boys downstairs want your fingerprints and a few vital statistics. Come on.
Relax, Mom. What are they going to do to me? Throw me in jail? After all, little pot never hurt anybody.
The next time somebody says a little grass never hurt anybody, tell him he's full of it.
Great. You could tell it was Canadian. All the teenagers are polite, clean cut, except for their drug usage. Yeah, Moreland Latchford, they made the film, and then Coronet distributed it in the States. We have some Moreland Latchford films that show up periodically. Pretty great stuff. Anyways, thanks guys for tuning in today. If you like what you saw, you can buy us some delicious coffee. Caffeine is our drug of choice. Also, you can tell the world that you like AV Geeks by hitting like, subscribe, by ringing the notification bell, commenting, sharing, etc. Yeah, so we'll be back tomorrow. We'll watch some more films. And I think I got the telecine worked out. I didn't see any weird like deinterlacing or interlacing issues, so think we're good to go. We'll just keep going. So everybody have a good rest of your day. And as always, please rewind, love each other, and we will see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Take care.